so I have some notes, and then Eileen also had some notes, and then we decided, you know what, we can do something a little differently. And I think we're both slightly nervous to do this because we're just going to try something different. And
you convince me that I'm excited and not nervous.
We're excited and not nervous. And so we will see how all of this unfolds, and we'll probably touch on a variety of topics. And if you do have a question, the plan is to set aside some time at the end for the question. So if something arises that doesn't get addressed, the encouragement is to try not to fixate on that the next 30 minutes and miss everything else, but know that there will be some time later for some questions. For Eileen, who I have a great amount of respect for, I just want to say, you'll see all these leaders out there running companies, and most of them are wanting attention, and it's all about them and their vision and their way and how they did it. And I just, both through your presence and who you are, I feel very comfortable, and I feel that there is a subtlety and a quietness and a depth that doesn't need to be like proven, but that I feel around you. So I just want to say I'm really excited to be with you today.
Well, thank you. You might be feeling my fear and my withholding, but thank you, or my hiding, or my...
So I'm curious, what is it, and I'll speak to myself too, but what do you notice just in this moment from being here and in your body, in the room?
I notice that my heart is pounding, just pounding, and I feel some terror, some fear, but I also but I feel some opportunity and a sense of rightness, and some kind of sense that I'm in the right place, that I'm supposed to say something, and I'm not sure what it is. So we'll see what comes.
Thank you. I notice for me, it's always interesting to notice what I walk into the room with. And so part of me walks into a room, like right now I can feel it's like, I really want this to go well so she's happy at the end. Which creates a certain tension, right? Like, I just want her to have a good time. You guys, so much. But there's that.
I have the same thing. I want you to have
So there's a little bit of tension around, like, how do we create this thing? And then I noticed too this desire to fill space and to just make sure, oh, that was a great question, or like, oh, I put out this, oh, that was a fascinating question, and just to like, all right, can I just let that go, right? And can I just relax and be present? So I noticed there's some tension around that, and there's also, anytime there's an interview there's a subtle tension that says you definitely don't want empty space, right? Because you're not doing a good job if there's quiet, because people are expecting you to give them information. So I notice there's a voice in my head right now that's like, all right, can you just invite silence? And then invite kind of what wants to happen versus trying to make something happen. So I'm in an inquiry right now internally about what that is, and I don't think I've actually ever done it with somebody like this consciously. Or I've actually, I usually try to do something else goes on. So I'm going to stop talking for a moment and see what happens.
So I have this actual habit of kind of shutting down, this kind of blankness that happens to me a lot, that actually is sort of my edge right now, that I'm realizing that in a lot of situations, my therapist has called it dissociate. I sort of disconnect, or I go into some kind of fear, and it's like I can't get my mind to work. So what I'm doing with that is sort of, I'm leaning into it. I'm trying to know, like I'm trying to wiggle my toes, but I wore these high heels, which I don't ever wear. And I can't wiggle my toes very well. But I notice when I do that, it sort of wakes my mind up. But it kind of brings me to the embodiment edge. And I was thinking about when I was out at Wisdom in California, and just how inspiring it was. And I just was feeling some gratitude. Thank you for the work that you're doing and what you're trying to bring into the world. And I love kind of synchronicity, things that happen. And when I was there, someone, we did a breakout session, and someone kind of pushed a book toward me as he was leaving, and
That happens at our conferences sometimes.
I know, it happens all the time, I'm sure. And usually it's like, okay, great. And I take the book, I think, where am I going to put this? I have to carry it. Okay. But I took the book home, and it was called What's My Body Telling Me? Wow. And the man's name was Sisgold, Steve Sisgold, I think. And it just really started getting me to think. So what is that? And what's happening when I shut down? What am I afraid of something? Or what can I do? Or what's this other, just like starting to notice the different feelings. You know, tension, what's this tension in my neck? What's it telling me? What does that mean? And trying to figure out how to move through it so that I can be open to what's trying to come. I'm just coming up with another experience for some reason that seems relevant. So because I have this shutdown all the time, I often go to places, conferences, meetings, and I don't say so much. And sometimes that's really good because I get to listen, and you learn so much more when you listen. But I go to the Clinton Global Initiative every year, and I'm very intimidated when I'm there. And I almost never say anything. And the first time, this was before I read the book, but I was starting to notice these feelings in my body. And so I was at the conference, and it was a session on impact investing. And I remember that I was sitting in my chair, and all of a sudden I could feel this tension in my back. And then I just relaxed the tension. And all of a sudden I raised my hand, I popped up, I said something, I don't even know where it came from. Afterwards, people were coming up and saying, I loved what you said, that was so amazing. And it was...
Something else said it.
Something else came, it was like it came through me. It was so...
But it required a shifting of your bodily experience, or an attention to that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And I imagine I know your job recently shifted.
Oh, yeah.
To Eileen Fisher. You're the chairwoman.
I'm the chairwoman. Okay. Not just the chief creative officer, I'm the chairwoman.
You're chairwoman. But in your other roles as CEO, founder, chief creative officer, all these different roles.
We just have so much trouble with titles in the company. It's just like...
But most of those roles, people look to you for answers, right? And so my guess is most people in those roles would assume that, well, if people are asking for an answer, I must have one to give. And I should know the answer versus being able to share from more of a personal experience of the body and of the thoughts and of an honest, like, wow, when you say that, this is what this is my experience.
Oh, good.
And I think there's a tendency to suppress that and to say something that would hopefully or potentially meet their expectations.
Give an answer. Yeah.
You don't have to answer that.
No, because I really am much more about asking questions. You know, when someone looks to me to give an answer, I tend to respond to the question, which I think has gotten annoying. That's why I got the chairwoman role, because people want me to make some decisions, for God's sakes, you know.
So that moves. So there's 1,200 people at Eileen Fisher.
Yeah.
And everyday decisions. There's a decision some decisions are made, right, at some point?
Okay, now we're going to talk about the shadow side of collaboration, yes.
Well,
okay.
we can talk about whatever, but
Okay, go ahead, answer the question.
I guess the inquiry I would have is there a genuine way for decisions to emerge?
Yeah.
And how, and I know that you don't know the answer to that, but I'm curious, like in your explorations, are there some pieces that might help us, give us some clues on ways that we might step into the decision emerging from a field versus a decision that's given by a person, even though that's probably needed at times.
Right. Both are true. And my experience is that actually we've worked very much in circle, and it's been quite amazing how many decisions do seem to emerge from the center of the room. We make a point in our meetings, that we hear every voice, and it just does seem that many decisions just have a sense of rightness when everyone in the room is heard. It's very interesting because right now, though that's true, that as we've gotten larger, it's gotten more difficult because we want to include everyone, but now that we're 1,200 people, it's just not possible to include everyone all the time. People are always left out. So what we're having to do is take this collaborative process that we've been working on for 10, 30 years probably to another place. And I think it's sort of what happens every stage. Every time we hit a different stage, it's like we have to figure something else out. So in a way, I'm sort of thinking of it as like we're sort of mixing the feminine and the masculine a little bit. We're looking at how do we create collaborative decisions, and then how do we actually move in a more efficient way. So how do we decide who gets to make which decisions when? How, and so that's sort of the process. Actually, that's our edge right now. That's where we are, figuring out. We certainly have roles, and we certainly have titles, and we certainly have responsibilities, although there's sometimes not so much clarity always about that. I just want to back up because I just want to kind of honor the work that we have done over these 30 years about this collaborative process, even though we're seeing the shadow of it right now, so the sort of cumbersomeness of it. It's worked so beautifully. And I want to say one other thing about process. So some of it is the slowing down, the listening. A person who's been working with us now for, I'm not sure, 5 years or so, said that when he first came around, he thought all this collaboration was, just a little much, all these people in the room, and how are you going to do all of this? But he came to realize that it's kind of amazing. People really listen to people. People actually don't interrupt people here. He said, that's the most unusual thing. I was thinking about the exercise that Joe did earlier. And, just that simple thing of listening to someone for 2 minutes and listening to the other person for 2 minutes, that's such a rare experience. And we bring that kind of practice into our meetings all the time. We rarely have a fairly large meeting where there isn't at least, a dialogue walk, a one-on-one kind of conversation where people are reminded, listen to that person for a few minutes, and then we're going to switch to the other person, so that people walk away with the most amazing experience of feeling heard. Yeah.
And stuff still happens?
Stuff still happens. Well, actually, what's very
Clothing
interesting...
Clothing is created?
We still, Sharon was just reminding me, yes, you still make the clothes. But that's actually what grounds us, that we do still have to actually make decisions, and we have to move forward. I want to say something more about that, how it actually happens.
Well, one is probably within the relational realm. because there's an energetics. Like, I feel like I can try to work stuff out with somebody, but if I'm not actually speaking about, if I'm not actually speaking from my own experience of fear or frustration or truth, then I just try and do it mentally. And I think when you really hear somebody and receive them, it's a different level of community. And my guess is that would be infused in the products you create and in the things that you do, and would hopefully reduce some of the conflict and some of the, constant turnover and stress and all the stuff that can happen at big companies.
Yes. Well, in a way, it's like meditation. It's supposed to make us more peaceful, and and in fact, it does, but it also deepens and enriches our experience. So what's actually happening at the company, I don't want to say there's more conflict, but there's more engagement and more richness and more depth of possibility, more interesting things going on, more complexity, much more.
And you invite it.
And we invite it. Like, I just want to maybe try to give an example of where, back to the embodiment piece and what we're trying to do now, what I see happening. So, for example, in a situation where, I'm trying to tell this story without naming names, or it gets a little tricky.
Person A?
Person A. Okay, so here I'm in a situation where I'm trying to understand something. And so what I often do is ask questions. But it comes to my attention that my questions are sounding critical. So, I'm getting some feedback that my questions are sounding critical. So how do I do that? So, but I still want to ask the question. So I want to lean in, and I want to get at the truth. So over the years, I think that there's, I'll tell this story. How do I tell this story? Let me think. So I have this person who's presenting all the positive things that are happening. How wonderful everything is, and how good this is, and how, this is going to be risky here, but okay. So the person will come into a meeting and say, oh my God, last week we had such an amazing event in the stores. Business was so, we had the best event ever. And then I'll say, that's fantastic. How was business for the week? Oh, it was 3% down. Oh, okay. So what
are they telling you?
So then I'm going, what are they really telling me? And what's happening for me? So I'm feeling frustrated. I'm probably communicating that in my question. I'm probably sounding critical. So then I realize I need to talk to this person. So separately, I talk to this person and say, okay, this is a hard conversation, but I like positive, that's great, but I need you to help me understand the truth. Because understanding the truth, and not just me, but everyone needs to understand the truth. If business was down 3%, let's not talk, let's say the great event was great, but let's also say business was down 3%. What does that mean? So, because we need to look at the truth in order to do better, to figure out what's not working, rather than walk away everyone thinking, oh wow, that's great. We don't get at what isn't working.
And that person, no doubt, has his or her. Was it a her?
It was a him.
Oh, well, okay. Her. Person probably has their own fears and stuff about, I want to really make Eileen happy. I want to tell her the whole good news.
Walk away happy.
So they think they're doing a good job, right, by telling you what they think you want to hear, but yet it's underneath.
Right.
And I think that's one of the pieces is how do you invite more of the shadow or the underneath, or when Joe did his exercise, what are you not saying? How are you showing up? Oh, we're all collaborative, but I actually hate that person, and I don't know how to say it.
Right.
And so what does a community look like? And it feels like you're in the middle of that.
Like learning to show up yeah, with kind of more honesty about the feelings that are underneath, so the embodied piece. So, okay, so I'm noticing that I shut down. Like another thing that happens to me is that sometimes when people talk a lot, because I'm a quieter person, or I almost have some kind of processing thing sometimes. So I'll be just like, whoa, whoa, where did they go? And I'll be like, oh, off there thinking something else because I can't keep up or something.
Yeah.
And so what I realize is that I'm starting to notice that I'm feeling annoyed. Or
You
I'm
notice it in
feeling-
your body first?
Now this is my edge right now, is where do I feel that? Like I recognize annoyance, what's that feeling? But I can't quite get the embodied feeling yet. So this is the edge I'm working on, so that I hopefully can start to get the signal earlier. So what does annoyance feel like? Where do I feel it? So I can't answer that question.
That's okay. So
That's what
once
I'm working
awareness hits it, what are you exploring and doing with that?
Right.
And does it change based on the situation?
Right. So, so for example, I'm not being able to process so many words. So, so then what I'm trying to do now is I'm meeting separately with people. When I start to notice something, I'm like feeling annoyed, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm not getting the full truth here. So then I go, let's meet that person and talk separately and go, you know, I just need to tell you that sometimes when you're talking, it feels like too many words. And so I experience the sense of shutdown. And so maybe you can help me with that. If you notice that I'm shutting down, or, you know, ask me. Or maybe I can just request that you slow down a little bit, or turn to me occasionally and ask, did I get that, or something. So,
But it's
I
bringing
think
that person in as a team member in your own process versus,
So the idea is to sort of create some kind of awareness. So, so the other person, gets maybe some self-awareness. I get, you know, more awareness. I get some feedback then maybe of like, oh, Eileen, are you? Where did you go? Are you getting what I'm saying? You know.
And I think the one approach is shut the hell up, you talk too much.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's one approach. Another approach is just to suppress and pretend that we understand the
Which
person.
I'm really good at.
Yeah, I'm
really good at.
I'm good at that too.
I'm working on it. Working on it.
And there's this middle way that sounds like, that brings in your own experience without judging them as different, but it's also letting them know when this happens, this is my experience.
Right.
And then letting a connection emerge through the sharing of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it's starting to sense a freeing up of energy somehow between people, and a more capacity to trust. Because I think they feel it anyway. You know, they feel what you're feeling. People pick that up, like you're looking at the way people look. What is that? So then if you notice it, like sometimes I notice somebody looking at me like that, and afterwards I go, I wasn't sure, I felt like you were kind of not agreeing. Were you not agreeing? That's okay. You tell me what you didn't agree or didn't understand. You know?
So I'm curious, I want to open up for questions.
Is this making any sense?
We'll open up for questions. For me, I would love, I wish you could like run the country personally.
Oh God, that would be terrifying.
Because that's the thing we actually don't have is listening.
Oh God.
And a willingness to understand another's perspective. And I feel if you look at the culture, it's, I had a friend who used to call it male answer syndrome. But it's both sexes, I think. But it's that quality of depth and of listening. And I feel like that as a leader is so rare in a way. And so I just respect your both excitement and struggle with trying to kind of forge a different path. Which is like, all right, I'm not going to suppress my feelings, and I'm also not going to pretend. And I'm going to see what is that other way of being. And my sense is the qualities that people are learning in your company will make them better parents, make them better partners, make them better aunts and uncles, make them better, because that is life, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite thing when people say the company has changed my life. I love that.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say the clothes have changed my life. I like to hear that too. You can say that. Now I like hearing that. It's very interesting. And I just want to point out that we're really on the edge with this. This is new. We're trying to break new ground. We've been doing, and I think one of the things that we've identified recently is that we're known as a very kind, collaborative, nice place. And nice is not enough anymore, you know? It's really not enough. Yeah. And so how do we, I always quote Mother Teresa when she says, tell the truth with kindness. Yeah. And I think tell the real truth. Yeah. And that's really hard. Yeah. That's really, really hard.
Particularly for people who think they're nice.
Right. Right. And want everyone to like. Want to be liked.
So we have a few minutes for questions. If you raise your hand, there are mics, and you just I don't know, unless Eileen, you want to. We can't really see people's faces.
I saw one here.
There's one here. Actually.
Is there one over
here? Hi.
If you say your name and where you're from, it just
Jennifer. I'm from Los Angeles.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. I've been following you for a while. I grew up in fashion retail, so it's so wonderful that you're here. And I so appreciate the dialogue you're having. What is curious for me, I'm a little nervous.
Good, me too. Join.
I notice that when I get the thought to want to ask a question, the nervous begins then, so it's been building.
Yeah, that's good.
So listening is something I've been really focusing on myself, and I'm feeling very embodied with this idea. And there's a book that I've been reading called More Time to Think by a woman named Nancy Klein. And she talks about these 10 things, and she talks about, the main thing that she says is, imagine what people would say and share if they weren't worried about being interrupted. And I love what you were sharing about, I hear a sense of ownership and responsibility that you're modeling and working through that process. I'm curious, because I also worked on the side of seeing the leader and experiencing you in this format, not working for you, and then also people that are in the environment of working for you and wanting to please you, also probably being very inspired by the mission of your company and all their stuff that has nothing to do with you. So I'm wondering, how are you, or are you teaching or training your, if nothing else, your leadership team on how to be this, so it's not just you.
Very good.
By yourself.
Very good, very good.
Thank you.
Perfect question. So right now, actually, I have a leadership person that I brought from Brazil. His name is Marcelo Cardozo, and he's working directly with me and the leadership team around exactly this work. He's working with embodiment. He's working with helping people to speak the truth to each other. He's actually starting with me, and some of the conversations I'm talking about are coming through his, support to push into those conversations. So the other thing that we're doing is he's now working with the entire leadership team. We also have another coach who works with some of the members of the leadership team, and bringing this deeper, it's really deep personal work into the midst of the leadership team. And the next team we're targeting is the people and culture team. So we have a team of 25 or so people that do that work. And so he's been working with them now, I think several times, and the idea is that they will then be the ambassadors of this work throughout the company. And we're also simultaneously offering, we started a learning center, and it's just in the process of opening, and one of the things we're doing there is offering purpose and personal transformation work there for the public and also for our employees. So it's going to be, the idea is to really to take it out there. And so thank you for that question.
When your public program's launched, we should let everybody know. As the public program.
There is one purpose program that you could check our website. It's Eileen Fisher Learning Lab. I think it's up. Is it up? Okay. So there's a purpose workshop by Marcelo in November, I think. I don't know the date, but you could check the website. Yeah.
And one more question, and Eileen, are you somewhat around today?
I
You're
wanted
in
to
and
say
out?
one other thing,
Oh,
because
sure.
this keeps coming up for me, that a few years ago, when we started to prepare to do the Learning Lab, the company was wildly successful. We had 2 years in a row, record years, wild. And when we started to prepare to do the Learning Center, I thought we were going to share our collaborative processes and all the things we've been doing. And when I started to do that, we started looking actually at what is the leadership program we currently have? What is it we really want to share? And we decided it wasn't quite good enough yet. It wasn't going deep enough. So that's the work that we're headed at right now. Anyway, go ahead.
So you want to deepen that and share it?
Yeah,
into
so
the
we
Learning
decided
Lab.
we wanted to deepen it before sharing, so we're getting ready now to share what we aren't pervasively actually fully doing it in the company. We're doing lots of wonderful things, but this is a deeper level. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Marlene. I'm from Hadley, Massachusetts, and I shop in your Northampton store.
Oh, I love my little Northampton store. My
it's
son
a-
went to Hampshire College, so I used to hang out
I
there.
live a couple miles from there.
Oh,
from
what a
that
sweet
college.
town.
But so I was in that store about a month ago, and I shared with one of your employees there about this gathering that I would be here. And I was just fascinated about the feedback that she gave me about working for you and in your store. And she said she's been there for 15 years. And she sees families and family members and friends coming and going from jobs and complaining about their jobs. And she said she stays there because she feels valued, she feels important. And so I wanted to give you that feedback because I feel that's coming from your frontline staff, and so what you're doing is trickling down, and it's amazing. And one other comment on your Vision 2020.
Thank you. Thanks for mentioning
That is extremely inspiring, and I just wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing globally.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
Do you want to speak to that briefly? And then
sure.
I think our time's up.
As she just mentioned, we have a huge commitment around sustainability. And this is, I think, again, it's rising out of some of the personal transformation work that's beginning to go on with some of our leaders, that they've just taken up this work in such a deep way that, we want to make all of our clothes sustainable. Well, we have a 2020 vision, and what we mean by that, we mean that, well, the team means that everything about our clothes will be sustainable by 2020, but actually that's not 100% possible. But we're going for it so that we only get to 98 or 88 or wherever we get to, but we're saying no exceptions as our pathway. And we've made huge progress in the last couple of years.
From where the whole process of the clothing creation. Yeah.
Exactly, almost all of our cottons are 88% or something are organic. Our linens are organic now. Our wool, we're taking the chlorine out. It's the dye. We're changing the dye process. We're getting into the factories in China and just shifting things. It's like, oh, there's so many people. Now this is purpose. People, the teams are so unbelievably passionate. It's very exciting. Thanks for mentioning that. And I get to promote it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So our time is up. So I want to
0.
thank Eileen, and she might be around at breaks. I don't know what your schedule is, but
I think I have to.
yeah, you might be. You might
A little bit.
see her.
A little bit.
Yeah, but I want to take some
I
time
wish I
to
could
thank you and
stay.
thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, Soren.
How do we create this thing? And then I noticed too this desire to fill space and to just make sure, oh, that was a great question, or like, oh, I put out this, oh, that was a fascinating question. And just to all right, can I just let that go, right? And can I just relax and be present. So I noticed there's some tension around that. And there's also, anytime there's an interview there's a subtle tension that says you definitely don't want empty space, right? Because you're not doing a good job if there's quiet, because people are expecting you to give them information. So I notice there's a voice in my head right now that's like, all right, can you just invite? And miss everything else. But know that there will be some time later for some questions for Eileen, who I have a great amount of respect for. I just want to say, you know, you'll see all these leaders out there running companies, and most of them are wanting attention, and it's all about them and their vision and their way and how they did it. And I just, both through your presence and who you are, I feel very comfortable, and I feel that there is a subtlety and a quietness and a depth that doesn't need to be like proven, but that I feel around you. So I just want to say I'm really excited to be.
And some kind of sense that I'm in the right place, that I'm supposed to say something, and I'm not sure what it is. So we'll see what comes. You know.
Thank you. Thank you. I notice for me, it's always interesting to notice what I walk into the room with. And so part of me walks into a room, like right now I can feel it's like, I really want this to go well so she's happy at the end. Which creates a certain tension, right? Like, I just want her to have a good time. You guys, so much. But there's that.
I have the same thing. I want you to be happy.
So there's
And them too.
There's a little bit of tension around like, So I have some notes, and then Eileen also had some notes, and then we decided, you know what, we can do something a little differently. And I think we're both slightly nervous to do this because we're just going to try something different. And
Convince me that I'm excited and not nervous.
We're excited. And so we will see how all of this unfolds, and we'll probably touch on a variety of topics. And if you do have a question, the plan is to set aside some time at the end for the question. So if something arises that doesn't get addressed, the encouragement is to try not to fixate on that the next 30 minutes with you today.
Well, thank you. You might be feeling my fear and my withholding, but thank you, or my hiding, or my...
So I'm curious, what is it, and I'll speak to myself too, but what do you notice just in this moment from being here and in your body, in the room?
I notice that my heart is pounding, just pounding. And I feel some terror, some fear. But I also... but I feel some opportunity and a sense of rightness.